Hey, there I am. And I've forgotten my light. Clips on like a breeze. Hey guys. I was feeding the cats and it's really annoying. But I'm here. I've got my hair teased up. I look like Princess Anne. I look beautiful. That's standard of feminine beauty. Princess Anne. I forgot again to do a tweet to say I'm live, which is fine. Something people do. Hello, thank you. Like Princess Anne. What's up, John and Danny? I'll make an effort. Also, I had a shower today. Not to brag or anything, but I did. Gonna do a tweet to say we're live. And I'm also boiling the kettle so I can pour hot chocolate. So I'm gonna do a tweet very soon. I can figure out my phone. So, the Great God Pan, very interesting, very strange. You gotta get cozy. Yeah. Got some hawk chorple. Hawk chorple. I've got lashes on. Which are very hard to put on because I actually can't see putting this one on. Like my close-up vision is not good enough to see what I'm doing. I'm getting a little bit better at it, I think. Obviously, I can't put my glasses on to do it. We're live. Hooray. Okay, I'm just going to pour the tea. No, it's not for you. Naibi thinks the hot chocolate's for her because it comes in a sachet. It's so cute. No, it's not. It's yucky. Yeah. Right. You want to go outside? Outside? Yep. She ran away. She's scared of chocolate. Eyelash application monocle. I actually don't know if my vision's good enough with my glasses on to be able to see close up that well. But Evelyn wants to take me to an optometrist appointment, and I've been putting it off because I've been tired. But yeah, hopefully get some new glasses. I'll be able to see how. I'll be able to see the world. My nana got a cataracts operation. And Dad went. She's always saying how beautiful you girls are. She's in for a shock. Rude. Very rude. Okay, recap. Recap of the Great God Pan. Okay, so we start with these two guys, Raymond and I was going to say Kevin. Raymond and Clark. Raymond's a doctor. He's like, Welcome to my lab with no ethics. I have a street urchin that I saved. Her name is Mary. She's 17. She trusts me completely. We're going to cut her brain a little bit and allow her to see beyond this world to the real reality of everything. And Clark is like, oh, that sounds bad, but I can't, like, not look. So he looks. All of that happens. And afterwards, Mary is, like, her mind is just destroyed. So, many years later, Mr. Clark is writing his memoirs. And he hears about a girl called Helen who was sent to stay with a farmer by her dad, her benefactor. She led the farmer's son somewhere, and he came back from it screaming and crying. And he was never right again in his wits. When she was a bit older, she was best friends with a young girl in the village called Rachel. And used to go out in the woods with her. And then one day, Rachel came home completely traumatized. Hi, Jessie. We're doing the recap. Nice to see you. And then we cut to a guy called Villiers, who's walking along the street. He's rich. He's having a great time. And he sees a guy he knows called Herbert, except this guy is begging. And he's like, what the hell? We went to, like, Eton together or fancy pants school. And Herbert's like, oh, yeah, I know. I married this woman. And she totally ruined me. And also I think she's evil. That was a kiss to everybody in chat, not to the concept of evil. And that woman's name was Helen Vaughan. What? There was a man found dead in their yard. It caused a big society scandal. And Helen Vaughan pretty much disappeared. So Charles Herbert, he had nothing. He was done. And now he's a beggar, and he's also terribly mentally scarred. Then Villiers goes and visits Mr. Clark. And he's like, so you're a really rational dude. And Mr. Clark's like, yes. I mean, kind of. And Villiers goes, wow, okay, so I saw my friend Herbert, and here are all the things that happened to him. And Clark goes, oh, that's super weird. It's gross. And Villiers is like, so I went to their house, and it was empty. And it was so scary. I had a panic attack and freaked out because, like, the room felt evil. So Villiers wants to go and find this woman, Helen Vaughan, who ruined his friend and maybe killed a dude, not sure. And Clark is like, oh, I guess so. And then a sketch falls out of the papers that Villiers is carrying. And Clark picks it up. And what? It's a woman's face. And she looks like Mary. He's like, oh, shit. She looks like Mary. But that was 20 years ago, however long. And Villiers is like, no, that's Herbert's wife. That's Helen. And Clark looks at it again. He's like, oh, shit. And he realizes it is indeed Helen. So, we ended last time by saying, Clark was saying, it's a strange story. You must give me time to think it over. I may be able to help you, or I may not. Good night. Come and see me in the course of a week. So Villiers was planning to come back and see Clark in a week. So Villiers is our intrepid investigator at the moment. Clark is our guilty conscience guy. who sat and watched what happened to Mary. And now he's like, oh, dang. I guess she had a daughter who is now, super, ruining people and making them go insane and everything. Sorry, the smoothing. Like a wonderful Princess Anne. Raymond is the doctor. He hasn't been in it for a while. And Herbert is the victim, I guess. So now we're 10 minutes in and we are ready to begin The Great God Pan by Arthur Machen. I don't know how to say it. Chapter 5, The Letter of Advice. And there's only 3 people here, but, fuck them. We've been here for 11 minutes. Let's go. Sorry, not fuck them to latecomers. Welcome in the future when you're watching this. Do you know, Austin, said Villiers as the 2 friends were pacing sedately along Piccadilly one pleasant morning in May. Do you know I am convinced that what you told me about Paul Street and the Herberts is a mere episode in an extraordinary history? I may as well confess to you that when I asked you about Herbert a few months ago, I had just seen him. You had seen him? Where? He begged of me in the street one night. He was in the most pitiable plight, but I recognized the man, and I got him to tell me his history, or at least the outline of it. In brief, it amounted to this. He had been ruined by his wife. In what manner? He would not tell me. He would only say that she had destroyed him body and soul. The man is dead now. Well, that's a very dry way of telling us Herbert died. And what has become of his wife? Well, that's what I should like to know, and I mean to find her sooner or later. I know a man named Clark, a dry fellow, in fact a man of business, but shrewd enough. You understand my meaning. Not shrewd in the mere business sense of the word, but a man who really knows something about men and life. Well, I laid the case before him, and he was evidently impressed. He said it needed consideration and asked me to come again in the course of a week. A few days later, I received this extraordinary letter. Come on. And I received that extraordinary cat. How did Herbert die? He died. Yeah. I don't know, man. He died. People die every day. You're focusing on the wrong part here. This is about me and my story. I got a letter in the mail. Austin took the envelope, drew out the letter, and read it curiously. It ran as follows. My dear Villiers, I have thought over the matter on which you consulted me the other night, and my advice to you is this. Throw the portrait onto the fire, blot out the story from your mind. Never give it another thought, Villiers, or you will be sorry. You will think, no doubt, that I am in possession of some secret information, and to a certain extent that is the case. But I only know a little. I am like a traveller who has peered over an abyss and has drawn back in terror. What I know is strange enough and horrible enough, but beyond my knowledge there are depths and horrors more frightful still, more incredible than any tale told of winter nights about the fire. I have resolved, and nothing shall shake that resolve, to explore not one whit farther, and if you value your happiness, you will make the same determination. Come and see me by all means, but we will talk on more cheerful topics than this. That's a letter that's just... It's not even piquing your curiosity. It's grabbing your curiosity by the scruff of the neck and shaking it and being like, guess what? Something mad exciting is happening. It's like cops on TV being like, move along, nothing to see here. No, something incredibly gruesome and interesting is happening. That's just my commentary. Austin folded the letter methodically and returned it to Villiers. It is certainly an extraordinary letter, he said. What does he mean by the portrait? Ah, I forgot to tell you. I have been to Paul Street and have made a discovery. This is where Herbert, Charles Herbert and Helen used to live. Villiers told his story as he had told it to Clark, and Austen listened in silence. He seemed puzzled. How very curious that you should experience such an unpleasant sensation in that room, he said at length. I hardly gather that it was a mere matter of the imagination, a feeling of repulsion, in short. No, it was more physical than mental. It was as if I were inhaling at every breath some deadly fume, which seemed to penetrate to every nerve and bone and sinew of my body. I felt racked from head to foot. My eyes began to grow dim. It was like the entrance of death. Yes, yes, very strange, certainly. You see, your friend confesses that there is some very black story connected with this woman. Did you notice any particular emotion in him when you were telling your tale? The friend glosses over this panic attack very quickly. Yes, I did. He became very faint, but he assured me that it was a mere passing attack to which he was subject. Did you believe him? I did at the time, but I don't now. He heard what I had to say with a good deal of indifference, until I showed him the portrait. It was then that he was seized with the attack of which I spoke. He looked ghastly, I assure you. Then he must have seen the woman before. But there might be another explanation. It might have been the name and not the face which was familiar to him. What do you think? I couldn't say. To the best of my belief, it was after turning the portrait in his hands that he nearly dropped from the chair. The name, you know, was written on the back. Quite so. After all, it is impossible to come to any resolution in a case like this. I hate melodrama, and nothing strikes me as more commonplace and tedious than the ordinary ghost story of commerce. But really, Villiers, it looks as if there was something very queer at the bottom of all this. The two men had, without noticing it, turned up Ashley Street, leading northward from Piccadilly. It was a long street, and rather a gloomy one, but here and there a brighter taste had illuminated the dark houses with flowers and gay curtains and a cheerful paint on the doors. Villiers glanced up as Austen stopped speaking, and looked at one of those houses. Geraniums, red and white, drooped from every sill, and daffodil-coloured curtains were draped back from each window. It looks cheerful, doesn't it? He said. Yes, and the inside is still more cheery. One of the pleasantest houses of the season, so I've heard. I haven't been there myself, but I've met several men who have, and they tell me it's uncommonly jovial. The season is it's called the London season, and it's when all the rich people visit each other and throw balls and have fucking tea parties and talk about how inbred they are and try and get their daughters married off, to people with an acceptable bank account to chin ratio. The London season, right? That's what we're talking about. Seriously? So naturally, he knows lots of people who've been in and out of the house. If the person who owns the house is kind of part of all that. Whose house is it? Mrs. Beaumont's. And who is she? I couldn't tell you. I've heard she comes from South America, but after all, who she is of little consequence. She's a very wealthy woman, there's no doubt of that, and some of the best people have taken her up. I hear she has some wonderful claret, really marvellous wine, which must have cost a fabulous sum. Lord Argentine was telling me about it. He was there last Sunday evening. He assures me he has never tasted such a wine, and Argentine, as you know, is an expert. By the way, that reminds me, she must be an oddish sort of woman, this Mrs. Beaumont. Argentine asked her how old the wine was, and what do you think she said? About 1,000 years, I believe. Lord Argentine thought she was chaffing him, but when he laughed, she said that she was speaking quite seriously and offered to show him the jar. Of course, he couldn't say anything more after that, but it seems rather antiquated for a beverage, doesn't it? Why, here we are at my rooms. Come in, won't you? Thanks, I think I will. I haven't seen the curiosity shop for a while. Ouch, don't make a dig at your bro's rooms. It was a room furnished richly yet oddly, where every jar and bookcase and table and every rug and jar and ornament, it says jar twice, seemed to be a thing apart, preserving each its own individuality. Anything fresh lately? Said Villiers after a while. No, I think not. You saw those queer jugs, didn't you? Sorry, I'm just giving everyone a moment to enjoy the phrase queer jugs. I thought so. I don't think I've come across anything for the last few weeks. Austin glanced around the room from cupboard to cupboard, from shelf to shelf, in search of some new oddity. His eyes fell at last on an odd chest, pleasantly and quaintly carved, which stood in a dark corner of the room. Ah, he said, I was forgetting. I have got something to show you. Austin unlocked the chest, drew out a thick quarto volume, laid it on the table, and resumed the cigar he had put down. Oh, bugger, there's more Latin coming up. Did you know Arthur Mayrick the painter, Villiers? A little. I met him 2 or 3 times at the house of a friend of mine. What has become of him? I haven't heard his name mentioned for some time. He's dead. He died of Herbert fever. You don't say so. Quite young, wasn't he? Yes, only 30 when he died. What did he die of? I don't know. He was an intimate friend of mine and a thoroughly good fellow. He used to come here and talk to me for hours, and he was one of the best talkers I have met. Is talk a code? He could even talk about painting, and that's more than can be said of most painters. About 18 months ago, he was feeling rather overworked, and partly at my suggestion, he went off on a sort of roving expedition with no very definite end or aim about it. I believe New York was to be his first port, but I never heard from him. 3 months ago, I got this book with a very civil letter from an English doctor practicing at Buenos Aires, stating that he had attended the late Mr. Mayrick during his illness, and that the deceased had expressed an earnest wish that the enclosed packet should be sent to me after his death. And that was all. And haven't you written for further particulars? I have been thinking of doing so. You would advise me to write to the doctor? Certainly. And what about the book? It was sealed up when I got it. I don't think the doctor had seen it. Is it something very rare? Mayrick was a collector, perhaps? No, I think not. Hardly a collector. Now, what do you think of these Ainu jugs? They are peculiar, but I like them. But aren't you going to show me poor Mayrick's legacy? This guy sucks. He's like, Austin. Like, I had a friend and we were really, really close. And he moved away and, like, died. And he sent me something. I haven't, like, opened it or whatever. Anyway, we're best friends. Look at some other crap that I bought. Aren't you going to show me poor Mayrick's legacy? Yes, to be sure. The fact is, it's rather a peculiar sort of thing, and I haven't shown it to anyone. I wouldn't say anything about it if I were you. There it is. I'm gonna write the Latin in the chat, so somebody can Google it. I should have checked. My Latin is not strong. Villiers took the book and opened it at haphazard. It isn't a printed volume, then, he said. No, it's a collection of drawings in black and white by my poor friend Mayrick. Villiers turned to the first page. It was blank. The second bore a brief inscription, which he read. Silet per diem universus, nec sine horrore secretus est, lucet nocturnes ignibus, chorus Aegipanum undique personatur, audiantur et cantus tibiarum, et tinnitus cymbalorum per orem maritarum. Maritimam. There's a secret light. There's a secret. There's a nocturnal light. You can hear music under the sea. No, that's ridiculous. Anyway, I'm going to write it in chat. Silet. Universos.